Hi, welcome to this week's webinar. Great to have you along. Joined this week by Devon Portfolio Manager Tama Willis. G'day, Tama. How you going?
Good morning.
Great to have you along. A bit going on. Yeah, obviously a tremendous July that we had for markets, and August has started off pretty well. But look, one stock bouncing back and been in the news is A2 Milk. Familiar name to many. What do you make of what's been going on there?
Yeah, it's been interesting. It has been the developments around the US infant formula market have been in the background for a number of months now. Some slightly peculiar developments in that A2 Milk went into trading hold on Tuesday, following a news article which actually quoted A2 about the FDA reviewing their application to sell some of their product into the US, given the shortages that are there at the moment. Now that's still. They subsequently released a statement saying that's ongoing. The FDA are reviewing. I suppose the questions that remain outstanding is, if it is approved, and then it's likely to be temporary to help meet the shortage. And then there is also the longer term question about whether A2 can get a foothold into the market in terms of actually getting the option to sell over the medium term. Now that's all unclear. Whether that happens. A2 obviously have their existing US business, which is losing around $30 million per annum. So any ability to go into the US market would be a positive, but we're unclear about the value that actually adds to the business because it's all somewhat unclear at the moment. But what it does show you in terms of the sharp rebound in the share price is it has been very weak over the last number of years. There are a very high level of shorts in the market, and any positive news has led to some short covering. Now, we're going to see the result towards the end of this month. There's still a fair bit of uncertainty about exactly how that will fall in terms of the numbers. But again, the market is, and you're seeing that right across the broader market, is those names that have been beaten up and under a lot of pressure are now finding a level to bounce from. And I think we're seeing that in A2 as well. We do have some exposure, and we're watching this with a lot of interest.
Sure. And just out of interest, the China situation, I mean, how does that?
I mean, listen, the numbers on the birth rate have clearly been weak. A2's brand health, the numbers we're anecdotally picking up, is still quite strong in China. And we've seen local players disappoint. We've seen some international players doing relatively okay. So there's a lot of volatility around the channel and around who's doing well and who's not doing well. The Daigou channel, as we talked about, with no traveling, with the birth rate lower, there's also some uncertainty around that. So I think it's a much anticipated result because we're going to see the trends are not entirely clear.
Oh, interesting. We'll watch that with interest. Switching to renewables, there's been a couple of developments, isn't there? There's been the Infratil transaction and also some news around Tiwai potentially. So what's been happening there?
Yeah, really quite interesting for that space, the infrastructure renewables sort of space. So Infratil announced, and this is also another development that we've been waiting for. Longroad is an asset that they have a large shareholding in, and that develops solar and wind in the US. Now, given the issues in Europe and given the focus on renewable growth over the medium term, that asset, they'll be looking for new money to come in so they can further develop the asset base in wind and solar over the medium term. So Munich Re invested $300 million at a 40 times EBITDA multiple. And to put that into context, Spark trades at 9. So the amount that investors are paying for these assets with a very strong long-term growth optionality in renewables is very, very high. Now, we've seen recently in telco towers, transactions for Vodafone and Spark in the mid-30s EBITDA multiple. And we thought a number of years ago when Infratil sold Tilt for below 30 times EBITDA, that was the peak of these assets in terms of valuation. So very good for Infratil. They've retained a close to 40% stake, and there's a long pipeline of growth there for them. Now, where it's also interesting, I think, now you asked about the New Zealand aluminium smelter or Tiwai. Meridian released a statement saying that Rio Tinto, or the aluminium smelter owned by Rio Tinto, Tiwai, is looking to enter negotiations to discuss an extension of the contract beyond 2024. Now, that suggests to us that it's likely, we thought that before, but likely that Tiwai stays, which really just underpins the earnings beyond 24 for Contact and Meridian in particular, because it's unlikely that the aluminium smelter will get the low contract electricity rate that they achieved when they signed this this deal. It could be materially higher, which will help the earnings for the sector. So that's a positive for Contact and Meridian and the rest of the sector, but particularly Contact and Meridian, and their share prices have bounced on that news. The other factor I think is, which is interesting, if you look at the sort of valuations you're seeing for renewable assets, Contact Energy trades at around 14 times EBITDA. Obviously, investors are looking at businesses like Longroad at much higher multiples. Clearly, there's a much bigger runway in the US in terms of renewable growth. But it just shows you that the valuations in New Zealand are relatively attractive for names like Contact Energy.
Oh, fantastic. Well, yeah, two really interesting developments, and yeah, thanks for explaining that, Tama, as always. Very interesting. Thanks for joining. We'll leave it there for today. Do have a good rest of the day, good rest of the week. As said previously, and if you have any questions for any of the team you'd like, or particular topics covered, yeah, do get those in. We'll be doing some macro webinars as well in the not too distant future, like Tama and Slade did recently. But in the meantime, we'll leave it there for now. Have a great day, have a great rest of the week. Bye for now, and thank you, Tama, once again.